you can convince Cubby to come onto a show and watch Haichao willingly, that's how you know that Rhino is a very good guest to have here on this stream. So shout out.
Yeah, that is definitely a major accomplishment for Rhino to be able to hold. But as we get into draft here, very similar bans to game number 1. Still things like Yunara and Vi banned out here, and then the Viego, of course, taken away from NIP, not wanting to give that to Xiaofang, especially on blue side now. But it will be Zika's Renekton locked in as a B1. People might forget because it hasn't been quite as prevalent so far in 2025. This has been one of his best picks over the course of his career, and this is definitely comfort. One of my big problems with LNG in game number 1 was just the fact that they didn't really have any ways to contest in the early game. Renekton certainly gives them more of that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not Rumble, it's Renekton here for Zika, kind of going down that priority list. And when you're likely one of the best players on this LNG team, certainly the one with the most pedigree, not surprising to see them prioritize a top lane lock-in early in both matchups. Going to be responded to by a Senna here for Leave, another champion that can scale very well into the game. The Cassante adding a lot to that as we see a Brand getting locked in next alongside a Leona. Now this could go a number of different ways. Mid lane, obviously, bot lane, even for Fish One. Maybe a Brand jungle? I mean, okay, man, this is a little bit unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, this certainly opens up the possibilities for LNG's draft. I mean, everything's against the wall right now, right? If you lose this series, you're basically out. You might as well try absolutely everything that you can. I have a feeling this might be in the jungle. That would certainly be something that would be very interesting to talk about, especially because Brand is certainly a different champion than the last time we saw him regularly in the jungle. But do want to touch upon Ninjas in Pyjamas draft at least a little bit here. The Senna picked up for Leave. This is actually the most banned champion against NIP throughout this split so far. This is something that people are clearly scared of giving to Leave, and he's able to pick it up alongside the Braum, which is one of Niket's most consistent picks, as we saw over the course of last split. So excited to see comfort coming in, I guess, from both sides, but man, that Brand makes things interesting.
I don't think I've seen a Brand this year at all. Like, this is very unique here. Obviously had a lot of prevalence last season when the AP junglers were just going wild with, you know, just all the items and the like, but very curious to see how this Brand is able to function, as it does provide a little bit of extra damage here, especially in these big team fights, which seemingly is also, once again, what NIP would like to focus on. Now, as we go into the second phase of the draft, we see junglers being targeted against Naiyou. The mid jungle for NIP going to have to pack a punch with a lot of utility-focused champs already locked in for them in the first rotation.
Yeah, and that's why you're seeing a lot of those priority, like, aggressive junglers taken off the board, the Lee Sin and the Nocturne in particular for Naiyou. There are still plenty of options available, especially for his champion pool. I think he can go in a lot of different directions, but it'll all just be about which one he wants to lock in for. Things like Lilia were on the table last split, but Nefiri, another champion that's kind of seeing a small re-emergence over the course of the past couple of weeks that I think could be on the table here if they want to go in that direction. But it is the Lilia lock-in here. That signals to me that they really believe this is Brand jungle, that they absolutely think that that's the direction this is going to go in. But man, I'm already so excited. You mentioned it before, Graves. I cover almost every region on my own personal YouTube channel. I have not seen a Brand this year, so I'm very excited to see how this plays out.
Should be a fun time, as it seems like we're really getting into the scaling here, as one of the frequent answers into a Senna composition is just lock and smolder. Hey, if you're going to give us a free lane, we will take it. Fish One going to put his hands on that. I think he's had this champion in his hands a couple of times already this season, as we'll see what exactly the composition will round out with. Will it be Brand jungle, Brand mid? It looks like it might be towards the mid lane at this point. A blind Jace would certainly be an interesting decision here for Haichao, but AD damage never an issue now that you have this Brand in the jungle. And there it is. Could be a situation where you're flexing this up to the top side, but I would not imagine it, as we'll see what NIP want to round out with their composition here with Doinb.
What a fun Game 2 draft, Graves.
Hey.
I'm glad we got something interesting, especially after that game number 1. It will be
Exactly.
the Victor rounding things out here. Victor Senna certainly sets a tone for Ninjas in Pyjamas in terms of how they might want to play this game out moving forward. But the battle lines are drawn. It is do or die for LNG, and they are opting into saying, well, we're either going to get a big lead in the early game or things aren't going to work out. You know, speaking a bit as a mid laner here, I really like the Victor matchup into Jace. I think it's pretty difficult to punish that Victor and to really take down that scaling. I think so much is going to be on Fish One here on the Smolder. We've talked about him playing for late games. He is their one out, and we'll see what Xiaofang can do on this Brand.
And we talk about the support matchups again, as we have our friend Rhino from ProDiff here on the desk. A lot of pressure on OVO, as he is the most reliable form of primary engage on either team, honestly. So fights will really be made or broken by how he is able to maneuver around and find that initial go button on this Leona. Obviously the Braum, a bit of a tough matchup here just in terms of being a champion that can really withstand a lot of pressure. But overall, on NIP's side, not a lot of initial go buttons on their end. So they're going to have to just kind of soak in and counter engage a lot of what NIP throw at them. But I think the big thing here, K-Men, is we're going to see some crazy team fights in this one.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be wild and chaotic, and there's so much damage on both sides of the rift here that it's just going to come down to who can generate that map tempo first. If you can get priority in side lanes this game, I think that might just be over for whoever ends up grabbing that for either team. I think that could be a huge win condition for both, so very excited to see how things play out. Couldn't have asked for a better draft going into game 2.
We got an arcane... we got an arcane matchup in the mid lane. I just realized here, Jason was Victor as well, as from Shenzhen. We bring you game number 2 here of NIP versus LNG, and already off to a wild start as Xiaofang going to get targeted very heavily. This brand not very durable early on. He's going to take a beating and forced to head back to base.
Yeah, not the worst exchange in the world. No flash burn this time, which actually is a bit of an improvement over the early game. Last game for LNG, where the Pantheon, maybe not quite at level 1, but had to burn that flash early on at the Crab. NIP now with the invade because of the pressure they've generated. This could be another sore spot for LNG if NIP want to stick around, but Fish1 going to spot it out.
Throw out a little bit of poke damage himself, as leaving Niket will heal up quite nicely. As this game brings us a jungle matchup straight from 2024 summer here in Lilia up against Brand. These are two junglers, K-Man, that of course have had other stints in the LPL, but this is, you know, really for both of them like the first extended amount of time that they've gotten in quite some time. Both trying to prove themselves here down in Group Nirvana. For Naiyou, definitely a much more successful journey, at least so far this season. I mean, this is the champion that he got a pentakill on in his first series with LGD in Split 2. Back on a pick like this, but now both of these junglers have a big opportunity to really put the carry pants on here in this game.
Yeah, that's what I'm so excited about. We hyped up these junglers going into this series, and you know, at times we saw a bit of that in game number 1. Naiyou ends up grabbing that player of the game on the Skarner, but this is much more the type of performance where we are really going to see what they can do to impact the game as a whole. Xiaofang really needs to get the ball rolling, I think, for his team. If this brand ends up just being a little bit ineffective around these early skirmishes, things can get out of control quickly against NIP's roster. So once again, I think there is a lot of pressure on a team, but this time it's LNG who should at the very least be in the driver's seat early.
And I love what you say. At least they're going out firing, right? They need a win here to even have a chance. Basically, what needs to happen here for LNG is if they do not lose this series, or they need to beat at least one of NIP and EDG, the top teams, and then hope that an Ultra Prime or an LGD just loses out for the remainder of the season to give themselves any sort of chance. And already dropping this first game, not the best, as game record is also like a tiebreaker when it comes to how, you know, these seeds will be decided. But LNG, the time clearly is running out for them, and hey, shout out to them for being creative and putting themselves potentially on some comfort picks here to go up against a team that clearly has outmatched them throughout the season so far. NIP 3-0 so far in game score against LNG this season.
Yes, and I think that's kind of the key takeaway, is that the execution was really the biggest diff in game number 1. We can talk about the comms, we can talk about the setups, but really it just came down to NIP being better in a lot of their exchanges. A really nice play.
Talk about
Solokill.
being better. Oh, look at that. Nicely done solo kill.
Yeah, that was very nearly a namesake for him on the top side there, with Zika's Renekton just being a little bit too greedy, but luckily he will be able to dice his way out of there. That being said, Naiyou going to make a counterplay on the bottom side of the map here. Fish1 is quite low.
We'll see if this dive is successful. Zika has a teleport available, but they're looking for something on the top side instead. Already a stun lands onto OVO, who does a nice job of making sure that wave's not in a great spot. Still going to be a risky play, but in goes Naiyou. They're going to go down at least 1 for 1, as both supports will drop, but overall First Blood goes over to NIP. They should be able to control this bottom wave as well.
Yeah, very risky play there, and we'll see if it's countered on the top side right now. Xiaofang taking tower shots.
The burn hit onto Xiaofang here with the passive as Solokill just gets 2 tower shots for free. Would have been a tough dive either way, but Solokill doing a nice job to keep himself alive up there.
Yeah, that's kind of the negative of Brand, is it becomes very difficult to not aggro those enemy towers. But do want to at least talk a little bit about that trade, because yes, it is First Blood going over to NIP. Haichao potentially in some danger here, but shouldn't really be. Doinb has no mana. But you are trading a kill over to Fish 1 on this Smolder, and I think really the only thing you have to be super concerned about in the late game here for NIP is the Smolder getting out of control. While Fish 1 might not be the most, aggressive positioner in the entire world in terms of dominating games, he certainly is good enough to be able to pilot a champion to take over in the late game like Smolder.
Not a lot of farm so far, though, and that is why a dive like that is potentially good, even though a kill goes over. Just trying to put down this Smolder in what should theoretically be a freer lane for them. As we're actually getting a situation now where NIP rotating their bot lane once again back up top. Maybe just to help out Solokill a little bit, but now you are putting yourself, K-Man, in a position where Fish 1 will be able to farm a little bit more freely.
Yeah, this is kind of the problem with putting AD carries behind in the early game in the current meta. It's just that there are plenty of inbuilt ways in terms of how teams are playing the game to get them caught back up. And I think we likely will see that here from Fish 1 as Naiyou getting contested over his Grom. A pretty wild exchange as a lot of damage coming in. That's what Brand can do. That's absolutely the positive. Come in, take your Gromp, and get out. Very fun stuff overall, but Zika could be a target once again if they do want to play aggressive. Outside of that, it's just going to be Grub spawning in 2 minutes. Yeah,
both top laners pretty immovable, I would say, just given both what they're able to do in the top laners kits, as well as, Smolder and Senna, not necessarily the hardest punching bot laners that we have before we get a couple of items and get later on into the game. So I feel like overall things will be pretty chill for them, as LNG with the bottom lane of NIP rotating top lane, going to be able to pick up that first dragon once again. And so, K-Man at this point, feeling actually not bad about where LNG are situated. Even though the Smolder is down pretty far in CS, I feel like they've done a couple of things, on the better side, and hey, they have not gone too aggressive yet with OVO.
I think that's the plus, is no bad plays have happened yet. That being said, Fish 1 may have just cast or cursed them immediately.
Yeah, there goes the all-out. Fish 1 at the flash away, but a Pathmaker forward in the final, and Topho Strike will take him down as Solokill lives up to his name and takes down the Smolder once more in this game number 2. As we get another skirmish on the top side, as Zika will get the kill on Naiyou. That tower shot burning him down. And it's a 1-for-1 extended across the map. As immediately as we say not a lot of action, we get some more. Zenith Blade from OVO, not going to connect. The stun does onto Niket. I think he should be alright, although Zika is in the area with the Dominus, but Niket will get out just fine.
Honestly, that one was entirely my fault, Grapes. I do apologize to Fish 1. I clearly, egregiously caster cursed him in a way that just was never going to be undone. But that is a big play by Solokill. If this K'Sante can get online, all of a sudden you're looking at a front line that is very hard to break through with the K'Sante and the Braum for 2 very big damage dealers in the backline with Victor and Senna. That's assuming that Naiyou doesn't already take over the game, but we're going to get a replay of what happened on the top side here. It's Zika just looking very aggressive on this engage with OVO in the area. Naiyou just getting chain CC'd into oblivion. There's no way out here. Unfortunately for him, he does end up aggroing OVO because of the burn, and so he ends up taking the tower shot and dying from that. But it's a good counterplay from LNG on the top side, and it will give them pressure over these grubs, and that's all of the early objectives going in favor of LNG.
Yeah, I mean, normally when you rotate your bot lane to the top side of the map, it's to get early access to the grubs, but not happening right now here for NIP, as Niket taking a ton of damage from the Brand passive and will burn down for Feats of Warfare secured by LNG. Teleports come in for Solokill. So it looks like Ninjas and Pyjamas still want to try to contest some of these grubs, but it's going to be very difficult for them to do so, as Xiaofang in a very powerful spot in the game, and with Zika joining all 5 members of LNG, they will get full control of the grubs as well as that first dragon.
Oh boy, Grapes, it's not just a Brand game, it's a good Brand game, and I think that's even more exciting for us as viewers. Xiaofang really utilizing this champion well. Naiyou going to be taking his red here. OVO just going to be poking around in the area, going to continue to play super aggressively in terms of his position. Niket is in the area, does have to be at the very least a little bit scared, but this continues to be really solid for LNG. The only concern is that, again, the front to back is relatively consistent for NIP, but at least all of the early tests very much have been passed.
Yeah, and they're actually in a very even game state right now, and even looking towards the mid lane, Haichao getting a nice trade onto Doinb, who does not have much mana there, getting a wave pushed in. LNG, if they can continue to play this way, get Fish1 into a good position as well. Maybe looking at a game 3 here, came in, and that's the thing about LNG, is that even though they're of course sitting in last place, they have been competitive in a lot of these series in Group Nirvana. 5 game wins overall across the board. A couple of their last series also going to 3 games. They're keeping up, right? And that is why it's kind of sad to see them have their season like really be in severe danger at this point, because they've been playing close to teams like LGD and Ultra Prime, and so if they just get another chance to, match up against them, maybe the story ends up a little bit different.
I think the thing you're looking at, if you are a fan of LNG and you hope this goes to 3, is that it's not just LNG in this series who have been Game 3 merchants, but oh my goodness, the damage on Solokill.
Man, I didn't realize Brand had it like that. Man, shout out to Xiaofang right now. Now 2-0-0, just back for a full Leandries at 10.5 minutes as they take down Solokill on the top side. With LNG wanting to keep their series alive just a little bit longer here, came in, and they're doing a good job of it so far.
Yeah, no, they're doing a great job of it. The brand is very much paying off. 2-0 is relatively even in gold on Naiyou, but again, the brand has so much more tempo on the map right now that it's really easy for Xiaofang to kind of make every play that he wants to. We'll see how Haichao ends up playing the mid game here on the Jace. I think that's going to determine a lot about how this game ends up progressing, but, it's a gold lead for LNG, something they couldn't even really sniff in game number 1.
And being in a gold lead with Smolder comp, always going to be great. Obviously, the Smolder not in the best position right now, as Leave has gotten himself actually very nicely in the stack department. 44, I think, is what I'm reading right now at the 11-minute mark. Is certainly nothing to scoff at this point. But the rest of LNG doing a very nice job, specifically at the top side of the map. I feel like we talk about Zika and Xiaofang as being really explosive players. I mean, just remember Zika, as recently as a year ago, one of the most exciting top laners in the world. Obviously has not felt like that recently with how tough his team play has been, and at some points his own, but so far putting LNG into a good position right now against one of the best teams that Group Nirvana does possess. Next thing to fight over here is this dragon, as LNG already have claimed the first. Getting this one here would get themselves the full feats of strength.
Yeah, but this is so tough. Fish1 is at half health, and he has no ultimate. So this is going to be a very difficult fight for LNG to take if they want to try.
OVO stepping forward, landing that Solar Flare, and the Zenith Blade on to Leave, who pops the Dawning Shadow and will be able to keep his teammates healthy for now. The Arcane Storm, the Swirl Seed, there's the Lilting Lullaby and well, stunning up 2. Xiaofang is down as Naiyou makes him pay, but Fish1 is still alive. The Shock Blast will take down the Lilia, making it a 1-for-1, but Doinb's still chasing. Doinb's got himself OVO, and Haichao is the next target, forced to flash away. NIP go 2-for-1, and will prevent LNG from picking up that Drake.
It's an absolutely huge mistake for LNG. They really put themselves in a position where they should not be able to contest the dragon in terms of their setup, and yet they tried to do it anyways. It's well punished by NIP, and Naiyou once again coming in clutch with the Lilia ultimate and then bursting down that brand at the start of the fight. I'm sure we're going to get a replay, but the thing to note is that Fish1 is not a part of that fight at all. He's half health, no ultimate as this fight starts, and so it's already on the back foot. The Leona ultimate is going to land on the Lilia on the backline, which does delay a lot of the damage, but because you can't lock up Leave, it's very difficult to actually punish any of the mispositioning coming in from Ninjas in Pyjamas. The moment the Swirl Seed ends up landing, the flash comes out. This fight is over for NIP. They end up walking it towards the end here. It's a great Shock Blast to at least pull something back from Haichao. Outside of that, it would have been a nightmare, but still a huge win for Ninjas in Pyjamas, and it very much puts them right back into this game.
And you want to talk about support gameplay here. Niket, a huge unbreakable in that fight as well. You talk about Fish1 not being able to do too much in that last fight. A lot of it is because the auto attacks, the Qs that were going out, getting blocked by that big Braum shield. I think a little bit of the brand damage also getting impacted by that. So LNG threw out a lot of their firepower, but not a lot of it ended up landing, and that is the power of the Braum here in this composition, as NIP doing a nice job to bounce back, evening up the gold and Of course, still preventing that dragon from going down. It is still available, though. Both junglers potentially have their eyes on that for the time being.
Yeah, important to note that Herald is also spawning in 40 seconds. We've seen a lot of teams prioritize Herald over these dragons in the LPL in particular. Haichao, though, getting pushed down quite a bit on the bot side. Their ult is burned here. Could potentially be in some danger with Braum. That's going to walk out.
Just going to be able to get away. Yeah, and that might be just a signal for NIP to go for the dragon as well, given that Xiaofang is on the top side and not a lot of map control down there for LNG. And so nicely done by them to stabilize things. It looked like K-Man for a little bit. Things could have had the potential of getting out of hand quick. Now, LNG want to make a response onto the top side. A teleport has come in from Haichao, but he's going to get immediately pathmakered in. Nicely done by Zika to cancel and at least tank up some of that turret. And he flashes forward to pick up a kill and actually only gets executed. So not any gold going into the hands of Solokill off of that play.
It's a really nice counter map movement there coming in from LNG, and really well played, as you pointed out, by Zika. They were able to pick up this top lane tier 1 as well, so definitely a good play for LNG to be able to retake the gold lead, but overall still an okay play for Ninjas in Pyjamas, grabbing that first dragon. It is once again, for the second game in a row, going to be an Ocean Soul today, but Rift Herald has spawned, and it does look like it's being taken by LNG, so more objectives going over to the blue side.
Yeah, I mean, NIP, despite losing, of course, their top laner, were able to get the dragon and that bot tier 1, as you say. However, LNG going to respond by picking up this Rift Herald, so that gives them the feats of strength and gives themselves the opportunity to break open another turret if their heart desires. You get Fish One getting hit up here by that Glacial Fissure, gets rooted as well, but pops the mom and forces Leave back just a little bit. It's a Ghost has been popped by OVO, just Spellbook 1 though, so no harm, no foul if nothing is found off of it. LNG just doing their best to stay alive at this point.
Yeah, that looked like it could be a bit dangerous. Naiyou was on a pretty deep flank there in terms of the minimap, so would have been a bit scary for that Smolder if there were no consequences, we'll just say, for the over position. But overall, it ends up being fine for both sides. I think really Leave is the player that I'm looking at in the late game here. You know, Doinb obviously farming up incredibly well, but Leave has generated a huge lead in the bot lane, and we already talked about NIP scaling so well. If you're just going to be able to play this front to back with this Senna being able to pump out damage, this has been one of Leave's scariest champions this year. In fact, it's the one that teams are the most scared of in terms of their ban rate. So a lot of pressure is going to be on him and on Doinb, and at least for now, that feels pretty good.
Yeah, and we talk about Smolder stacks, getting that 225. Leave is that 68 souls at this point on the Senna? Now, I'm sure Slayer, our resident AD carry player, would be able to provide a little bit of extra context here, but I'm pretty sure that is a very, very good number right now. And obviously, getting the early advantage in the bot lane has helped him out, but Leave really going to be a powerful threat a little bit earlier than maybe you expect here on a champion like this Senna. And that is something that we are going to have to continue to watch, as, you know, we talk about LNG having some good scaling with the brand, and the Smolder definitely have some on NIP side as well, as OVO going very aggressive, not landing that Solar Flare on to Leave though, and he's going to pay for it with his life, as it's already a 1-for-0 in the hands of NIP. Pyroclasm comes out, only landing the passive onto Niket, and NIP still very healthy here in the mid lane.
Another overreach from LNG. OVO feeling like he found an angle, but his team is not in the area to be able to follow up, and so it ends up just being a 1-for-0. It's quite a few resources burned as well from LNG. Not going to be overly consequential. Dragon's still about 2 minutes away, just under 2 minutes away, so nothing really to punish on the map for Ninjas in Pyjamas, but still a play that hopefully LNG can start cleaning up soon, because you can't keep making those.
Fish One in some trouble now. Cleanses away from the Lilting Lullaby. And gonna be able to flash away from the Dawning Shadow, and now Leave maybe stepping a little bit too far forward. OVO might have found that opportunity. Shield of Daybreak and to stun him up. The burn from the Leandries will not be enough as he heals up with the Piercing Light. And Naiyou here to finish off the rest of LNG, getting himself a double kill. Looking for OVO, but with the tower overheated, will not continue his path forward. But another 2 kills for NIP have put them right back into the lead.
I thought that was disastrous for both AD carries, and it very much comes out on top for NIP. Leave ends up surviving in that exchange, which is massive for Ninjas in Pyjamas, and it turns into another really big play. The gold graph is going to be swinging, but it's NIP who were really controlling a lot of the direction that this game is going. We're going to get a replay here. Once again, it's Fish1 too far forward without vision, without assistance. He has to burn almost everything just to make sure he stays alive. The flash coming in from Leave, it forces out the flash from Smolder. At this point, I think the Senna's toast, but again, really well played by Leave to kite out, really well played by Naiyou and Niket to come in to really force this play out as well, and then the flash kind of cleans everything up. At this point, the damage is absolutely there for the Lilia. This is the reason that this player, Naiyou, has not been given Lilia a lot over the course of this split, but once again, it's an avenue found by Ninjas in Pyjamas because of a mistake from LNG.
Yeah, and that's not the best sign here for Fish1, already again being caught out of position. He is very far behind on the Smolder here in this game. Gonna have to really pick up the stacking if they want to keep this momentum going. As NIP slowly but surely crawling themselves into an advantageous position with this next dragon now spawned.
We will see Ocean Dragon up. This is a relatively important one to take because you can't really allow NIP to start stacking Ocean Dragons. It's even worse than last game for LNG to give over these mid-game objectives. Yeah, you really don't want to give that over. But Solokill, once again, forcing the flash out of Zika on the top side with that ultimate. It's another win for NIP in those isolated matchups as LNG drops the Herald to try and gain some pressure.
Yeah, remember, Zika does have TP advantage as well, so we can head back to base and actually join his team around this Dragon Pit for a fight if they so desire. Nicely done by them to generate some pressure in the mid lane. As Doinb's laser going to spot out a couple of members here. Please make sure that NIP on their toes a little bit here. They have a control ward in the Dragon Pit. They will not be able to do much about it right now, though, as LNG still really controlling the waves well at this point.
Yeah, it's well played by NIP as Leave, I say that, takes an absolute gigantic chunk of his HP with that Shock Blast coming in from the Jace. But at this point, you just have to make sure that you don't over-position. LNG are the ones who are kind of forced into a play here. See if they end up making it.
Again, Fish1 going to farm up this wave. Try to maybe burst down this tower, but the rest of NIP is going to join. As both top laners have also made their way down towards the bottom side. So will be a 5v5 if things do eventually break out here for this Ocean Drake. As it will be LNG to start things off right now, but a lot of poke available for NIP to make sure that they are in a position, but instead, they will be backing away and allowing this objective, at least for now, to be started up by LNG Esports. Naiyou continuing to poke a little bit, but it still should be controlled by Xiaofang and the rest of his squad, as that is a big objective now picked up for them. However, the fight in the mid lane going well right now for NIP as Doinb and Leave. You can see the power that these two champions currently have. Swirl Seed nearly connecting onto the Smolder. That could have been a real bad situation for him.
Yeah, that would have been certain demise for the Smolder if that had landed, so going to be very lucky to be able to dodge that one out. We saw Leave get completely chunked out by the Jace. Haichao really putting in a lot of work to keep this playable for LNG. The poke coming down from the Brand, from the Jace, even from the Smolder has been pretty massive for LNG, but NIP once again catching out OVO.
Yeah, but instead, going to just go forward, land that Solar Flare, not actually finding the stun onto Leave, only a slow. And so now the health bars on LNG not in good positions as Leave will continue to push forward here. Very powerful now on the Senna as he's eclipsed 100 stacks. Massive range now onto this champion as just chunking out OVO's health bar is enough for NIP to start up the Otacon.
This is huge for NIP. If they're able to grab this Otacon, it could be a huge nail in the coffin, but LNG are certainly not going to give it up without a fight.
OVO teleporting in with that spellbook. Time is running out here for LNG to try to contest the objective. It's not being burned down very quickly as NIP seems like they want the fight. They force a flash out of Fish1, and now they can turn their sights back to the objective, which is that 7,000 HP. OVO getting rooted up again by Leave, who's doing a really good job at controlling space and making sure that LNG have no path forward unless it is certainly to their doom. OVO uses the Zenith Blade, but it'll be met with an early grave as now Naiyou is getting chunked out a little bit. The Otacon's at 2,000 HP. Xiaofang's not able to get into the pit. A beautiful all-out from Solokill keeps the Brand out. and that's NIP controlling this major objective. Swirlseed now landing on a fish one. They should be able to burn him down, but in comes Zika. Hops the dominance pop. It's going to be able to take down Niket, but will go down in a trade by Doinb, as LNG will not be able to find much after that. NIP controlling the bottom side of the map.
It's so tough for LNG to play it, especially when Ninja's in Pyjamas position as well as they did at the start of that exchange. Leave going basically untouched throughout that entire fight on the Senna. That rapid fire cannon very much being used to its absolute fullest. The damage very much coming through now with 112 stacks on this Senna. It is a very, very scary proposition, but once again, the execution really is the difference. Watch Leave in this exchange. He's pumping in so much damage. He dodges the Zenith Blade coming in from the Leona, and at this point, no engage is there on the side of LNG. Yes, Naiyou is very low, but all it takes is Solokill just pressing R here on the brand to completely negate any sort of 50-50 that might happen. It's once again a huge play from the top laner of NIP, and at this point, they can really just chase them down. Zika wants to be able to pull something back onto Niket, but really, it's too little, too late in terms of the exchange. Otacon over to Ninjas in Pyjamas, and the full lead in their favor.
And Leave untouched that entire time. I got word from Slayer, who, again, a frequent Senna player, saying, you know, generally, if you get 100 stacks by 25 minutes, that's a good thing. We're 25 minutes, Leave was 120 at this point. In a great position on, as you said, K-Man, one of his best champions. As time really ticking now for LNG. OVO going in again, but not able to find a primary engage, and now Niket going to be burned down just a little bit. As nicely done here by the poke here of LNG to keep this at least even for now. But in goes OVO again, but he will get taken out. Both supports end up dropping, though, as Zika is on a flank. Looking for Naiyou with the dominance popped. Gets the empowered stun. The shock blast from Haichao going to burn down Naiyou as well. But now the follow-up damage from NIP can commence. The Dawning Shadow going to keep their members alive. Zika looking for a kill, but Naiyou will survive. And NIP make it 2-0, or 2-1.
Oh, it's so unfortunate, Grapes. Even the plays that they end up making and that look pretty okay end up not working out for them. This is the issue. You're looking at this draft for NIP and you're seeing your best players, the ones that can carry you across the finish line, on Lilia, on Victor, on Senna, and then you're looking at LNG. Who are the players that are playing well this game? The solo laners on Renekton and Jace. They just don't have the combat power at this stage of the game to be able to contest, and they are really paying the price for it, as OVO just continuing to get chunked out here.
Yeah, I feel like OVO, you know, this is one of those games, as we were talking about, the deaths maybe are justified at this point. He's finding nice plays, maybe a little bit too ham here, but you got to respect the initiative at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly not say that he's not looking. Unfortunately, the Leona ult goes very wide in this exchange, which does end up being a bit of a problem. At this point, he kind of understands that his role in this fight is to die if they are going to turn it in any way, shape, or form. So he tries to go in on Doinb, but the flash comes out, and from that point onwards, there's no play to be made. Zika is on this very, very long flank. He finally does get involved in the fight, but by this point, there's really no damage left. Even with the full combo from Renekton and Jace landing, there's just not enough to be able to burst down the Lilia. Zika, not enough damage to be able to clean up that kill, and it ends up being very much in favor of NIP, but we keep talking about the execution. This NIP team is playing very well today.
Yeah, and a much closer game than we had the first time around, but that's just credit to how NIP are able to withstand you know, some things that maybe did not go their way at the start and turning it into good situations for themselves still. The real question as we continue to move throughout this season, though, K-Man, this is the last regular season matchup in Group Nirvana for NIP. What they can do against tougher opponents as we continue to move along. And so we're going to find another fight in the mid lane. Naiyou going golden early, but look at Solokill finding a flank onto not Fish One and forcing him to flash away. Now the Kastante going to go all out onto Zika, looking for a flash forward and taking down the brand. Will be burning down and taken down, though, in response. A 1-for-1 overall as NIP maybe pushing a little bit further than they would have liked, but still going to be happy with the jungler of the opposition down. That means that Baron can potentially be started up, or at least have that vision cleared away.
Yeah, that is the important call out, is that it is a 1-for-1 with jungle and top lane, and so you can really set up around that major objective. But honestly, not a terrible fight for LNG, all things considered, especially at this point in the game. If you can take that 1-for-1, if you can start getting gold on some priority targets, that could be a huge positive. The biggest issue here is that Fish1 is just so out of the game. He has to burn every cooldown he has just to survive, and if you're kind of relying on this Leona to be primary engage, well, she's going to get absolutely obliterated by Leave at this point in the game. There is no way for this Leona to be able to survive more than a couple of seconds after an engage coming down. As we can already see with Leave just poking down the Leona, it's really difficult for OVO to play this game out, and that means that NIP are still going to have full pressure over this Baron.
As they have wiped out vision and don't have to start things up, they can just force LNG to walk straight into them. Now, the thing is now for LNG, Fish1 has hit that threshold for the execute. It's at 250 stacks right now on the Smolder. However, Leave is really in a powerful position right now and barely dodges away from that Zenith Blade. Will the executes end up mattering for LNG? Have they hit that breakpoint? Solar Flare not finding a stun, and that means there's really not many more opportunities for LNG to get into that pit.
Yeah, Solar Flare and Shock Blast both going wide onto Leave in that fight. That means it's very difficult for them to play. That being said, the Shock Blast is up again, and Leave going to take quite a bit of damage there. Luckily, he's Senna, so he's going to be able to heal through it. But at this point, OVO just has to walk up
OVO.
to a certain demise.
Can't be there, buddy, as he stepped the wrong way there. Doinb getting the kill, and now with a 4v5, NIP feeling a little bit more comfortable to start up this objective potentially, but instead going to turn their sights towards Haichao. The Arcane Storm coming down, Naiyou landing the Lilting Lullaby onto the Jade's going to land to sleep, and with Xiaofang in a bad position as well, should mean that both members will drop. The burn comes through from Naiyou. It's a 3-0 on NIP's side as they'll turn their sights towards the Baron.
NIP Ninjas in Pyjamas emerging as a true contender here at the end of Group Nirvana. They've looked as good as they have all year long in this series, and they continue to put the pressure on LNG. They recognize that Zika is on this massive flank with the Renekton, and they realize they can just take this fight 3v5 very easily, and they end up picking up quite a few kills. The Baron alongside it. We're going to get a replay here. OVO just having to face check because Baron could be in real danger here, and at this point with his health bar, it's non-existent. The teleport coming out, and like I said, Zika on this big flank with the TP, and IP understand, all right, well, you've got 3 members and none of them are frontliners. We're just going to full engage onto this side to guarantee not only that we get these kills, but this Baron as well. Very well played by everyone involved. Xiaofang certainly doesn't have the damage to break through here, so it's just NIP playing clinical, clean League of Legends and really showcasing their skill.
And again, this is the thing to think about as we potentially see NIP work towards closing out this second game. They've been able to take care of business here in Group Nirvana, right? 9-1. Their only loss was to EDG early in the season, and that's when they were still dealing with some of the new additions to their roster. But they came into Split 3, making changes to their organization's, 5-man squad, getting rid of that original OMG, core that they thought was going to be the solution, ended up not being. With Aki and PP God then, off the board. They made moves, not necessarily for this Nirvana phase just came in. They made moves to try and do better in the playoffs, where they have fallen flat over these past couple of seasons. And so that's going to be the real test for them. Not necessarily how they do in this group, although it has been great so far. How far can this take them? Because honestly, at this point, WE and FPX not playing super well. JDG, bit of a question mark too. NIP could be in a position to go on a pretty interesting playoff run.
NIP have made it very clear as an organization what their goal is, and it's Worlds. They don't care that they're in Group Nirvana. They feel like they can make this happen, as we see Doinb and Haichao just trading on the top side. Xiaofang is making his way here. This could be scary for Doinb.
Haichao flashing in, trying to find something, but Doinb is just too strong. 5-0-7 now on the victor. As Haichao was trying to make something happen in the side lane, did get all the way to the tier 3 turret and delays the Baron push, but it's going to cost him his life, and now NIP have a 4v5 to work across the map with for a potential soul point to retreat to.
Grapes, if there was, a play that really encapsulates this entire series, it's Doinb being up 3k gold and just being able to burst down the Jace. Really not a good play there for Haichao, even with his jungler kind of on the roam, but it's Ninjas in Pyjamas just controlling everything. They're going to be able to pick up this Soul Point Dragon, as you stated, and at this point, the gold lead has ballooned entirely out of control. There is really no way back into this for LNG unless you get some sort of miracle exchange. If this game can theoretically go 50, 55 minutes, maybe Smolder can get back online, but you know, at that point, you're really hoping for a miracle. So very difficult one to close out and a really, really great game state for NIP.
And again, yeah, for Ninjas in Pyjamas, having the composition that scales against a Smolder, not necessarily something that always happens, but they're really in a powerful position right now. When you have these compositions that don't necessarily have an easy primary engage, much easier to play, obviously, K-Man, when you're ahead, when you don't have to force plays. They can play things out slowly at this point, work towards the major objectives that spawn for the next couple of minutes. As for LNG, though, they got to figure out how to make things work. It feels like Fish One is starting to get there. He just picks up his third item, but it's just a rapid fire at this point. Not sure if he has enough juice even on this Smolder, despite the stacks being in a pretty good position right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's been able to catch up quite a bit over the past couple of minutes because LNG have just been losing everywhere else, but you can't protect against that.
He gets chunked down severely as OVO going to go in despite the rest of his team getting chunked out, immediately flashing away, but the Arcane Storm going to burn him down, and now the resets will start to come in. No Baron buff, but it might not even be needed now for Ninjas in Pyjamas to try to close out this game. They're going to break open the base, take this top lane inhibitor, mid lane next to follow. As LNG in a 4v5 still have the brand, still have the Smolder, but will it be enough to save the game, to save potentially their season? Not sure if that is going to be the case. Second inhibitor will go down, and we'll see if the NIP continue the push.
Yeah, Shock Blaster coming in. Zika's already popped the Dominus, though. It's going to be very difficult to fight this out. Fish One already getting chunked.
Oh, nearly getting hit by that root. That could have really sealed the deal. As Zika doing his best to try to just clear the way, but it's going to cost him his Steric Shield. As he'll be forced to go back to the fountain. Now OVO has respawned and has his ulti available, so now it is a full 5v5. But NIP still not going to be super upset with that, as they're doing a lot with Leave's range to just burn down these Nexus turrets, as LNG feels suffocated in their own base at this point. As Ninjas in Pyjamas looking to put a bedtime story down onto LNG 2025 season. The burn damage comes through from Xiaofang. It's not nearly enough. In they go for one potential final fight. Xiaofang goes golden. He's forced to flash away. Solokill lands the Entofo, strikes onto Fish One, and that should do it. It's a double kill already for Leave. Looking for Zika. He's forced to flash on out, but Leave will not let him. It's a triple kill. It's a quadra kill. Only Zika remains. Leave on his signature champion in the final game of the regular season for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Gets himself a pentakill, and he'll send NIP up to 9-1 to wrap up the split.
Leave no doubt in their minds as to who the team to beat in Group Nirvana is. That was the mission today for Ninjas in Pyjamas, and they passed it with flying colors. Leave getting a pentakill in his final game of the regular season. This team looking dominant in multiple different spots and positions. Everything you could want to see out of Ninjas in Pyjamas is here in this series, and they have proven they are a true force to be reckoned with.
And what a good feeling to wrap up your regular season, K-Man, for a player like Lee, for a team like Ninjas in Pyjamas, who have so much higher expectations than just finishing first in Group Nirvana. And with the way that they're playing right now, a 2-0 over EDG, the other favorite potentially in the group, and then having that performance against LNG, they got to be feeling very good about not just what the play-in stage can bring them against potentially a WE or an FPX, but even beyond. The international journey still on the line, still possible here for the Shenzhen natives. But, you know, overall, NIP looking like a real force in the LPL at this point.
It's actually astounding just how much this team has improved over the course of this year. I think they've gotten so much better, and I think they are really peaking at the right time right now, and you're absolutely right. They could be real threats in the playoffs.
And so for them, the journey in Group Nirvana concludes. Only way to go now is up, as LNG, their hopes of potentially finding a way out of this group really gets narrowed by this point, but they still have a couple more matches to go to wrap up their 2025 season. That's going to do it for us here on the caster desk. Let's send things back over to Slayer, Cubby, and Pocket Rhino for an analysis on that series.
Why, thank you, Penta Master Caster Grapes over there. Awesome call. Awesome pentakill coming over there for Leave as well on one of his signature champions. We were definitely talking about that all call long watching through that game too. Rhino, I want to pick your brain immediately because, you know, as we dive into these post games, once they start rolling through, you really feel like the bottom lane composition and IP put together here is just one of those Exodia ones right now in the meta.
Yeah, I think not to be too biased in favor of OVO or LNG or anything, but it really truly looks to me like they were set up to fail, or somebody hates them on their coaching staff or something, because they picked into such a bad matchup. It's unbelievable to me. So they, first up, if nobody remembers or whatever, they NIP 1-2'd Senna, and one of Senna's best pairings is Braum. Maybe even the best pairing. An insanely valuable, great pairing is Senna Braum. And then what LNG responds with is 2-3 Brand Leona, which in isolation I think is fine. I think LNG's comp in isolation is totally fine. But the way that they picked it I think is horrifically bad, because that leaves NIP with the most insane godly Braum pick that they can get on R3. Even when it was happening, I was talking about the second that Brand and Leona got locked in, I was like screaming that they should pick Braum on 3. The whole time they picked it, and I thought the game was over pretty much immediately. It didn't help at all that they then went and followed it up with a bad support matchup, and then they followed that up with a bad AD matchup where people do pick Smolder into Senna for certain reasons, but you can't really pick Smolder into Senna with a bad support matchup, because Smolder will just get sort of run over in the early game, and that's what happened. They got pushed around in the early game so much by Senna Braum that they got dove level 3-4. They killed the Leona, and it was a 1-for-1, so on the surface level it doesn't look too bad, but then the Smolder got zoned off of the whole bot wave right after that, and so got put down 15 CS to 33. And how can you win the game off of that? I think OVO is just so set up to fail by his team or somebody on his team that it's crazy. I don't know.
Look, it was a tough game. Like, we're looking at Lilia versus Skillshot Reliant Champs. We're like, okay, this could be a really nice setup. And it was great to see Naiyou. I know that we've talked a lot about supports with Rhino on the desk, but Naiyou, this was a signature pick for him with LGD. I've been kind of curious where the Lilia's been, because I think that it's a champion that still warrants games where it can be picked. This was a great angle for it. And this comp that LNG tried to brute force, it didn't work. And outside of really, I would say, Haichao's Jace, there wasn't really a highlight or a standout this game. I thought that Haichao had a decent game, and outside of that, that was about it.
Where did the Cubby I know and love go?
You know what? It's the last game of the regular season. Haichao made it throughout the entire season with LNG, which means that they value
he's got
him
one more.
Well, okay. Well,
he's got one more.
Okay.
Well, he got them a dragon by shock blasting the Senna 2 times.
That's true. That's true.
And they got a dragon for it. So there was that.
Yeah.
That was one big highlight for them.
We'll say for LNG that it's not just one more; they have 2 more, and they face Thunder Talk and EDG. So as a team that is really trying to win a series to make it to play-in, that TT matchup's actually going to be really important to decide who is going to be that group Nirvana representative in the play-in seed.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't help them that they also have to play EDG, who we talked about. We already saw how they're locked into like play-ins, but again, they need to be continuously sweeping opponents to make sure that NIP.
This didn't build promise either, so it's they're gonna have to win some series. It's gonna be tough.
I'm gonna do something as the AD carry player here that Rhino's pretty accustomed to, which is the ADC wanting to take the spotlight of a game, because I do think Leave deserves a lot of flowers in this one. Obviously gets the pentakill. I want to shout it out. 41% damage share. He does 50k in this game. That is just absolute filth on this champion. Definitely has to be the player of the game by far, right, Rhino?
Yeah, Leave was certainly the main character all the way from back in lane at level 3, where they dominated lane enough to get that early lane advantage. There was a play around in mid lane where he just walked up like a psycho, and I thought he was completely griefing, and he ended up living and flash cleansing away from the team fight and getting, I mean, he probably got 10 plus souls off that fight alone, and it ended up as a winning fight. Because Senna, the really good Sennas will follow their jungler around for extra stacks, but they'll also play just on the edge of where they can play to really get as many souls as possible, while also not dying. And it really is impressive that he didn't die at all, because to get the most stacks like that, you have to put yourself in pretty dangerous situations.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm glad you got to see it. Leave Senna is for sure a very good one here in the LPL. I know that Leave's in Group Nirvana with an IP, but his Senna definitely respected for good reason. Get to show it today, and glad you liked it as well, Rhino.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And you know what I was most excited that we got to show today, which is got to show what I hope to be future iterations. This was the first try of, the analyst desk, and most importantly getting Rhino out on here. And while LNG only gave him a case to maybe fight for OVO and more protections of his drafts and not too much of a series to break down, Rhino, it was a pleasure again to talk shop here nonetheless. You have any final thoughts before we send things to break and get ready for the Group Ascent series?
I think people shouldn't give OVO too much flack for this. I think, if anything, send a little bit more of it towards Fish One, or maybe the coaching staff even. Not to direct anybody at Fish One, but that draft is just crazy. It's so crazy to me. And
definition of a brute force for sure.
Yeah. I think maybe with a little more time, OVO can get some good games in where he doesn't have a million deaths, hopefully. And I had a great time on the broadcast, so
awesome.
I thought it was really fun to talk about these teams. So who knows? Hopefully, I can come back sometime.
Who knows? Calling out the Super Troopers, the admin team. I'm sure they are listening, as we would love to have you back, Rhino, and get you breaking down more of these games. One final plug, Chippy. Throw it back up. LPL 10. I need you guys to be purchasing some Rhino coaching sessions, as we got to get a bit of his pro coaching corner. He will increase your LP gains exponentially, guaranteed. You can go to him about that. I'm guaranteeing it, but it's Rhino that cashes that check for me. Nonetheless, that will wrap up our analyst desk with myself, Cubby, and Rhino. Big shout out to ProDiff, allowing Rhino to come on here. But we have Group Ascend to get to, and that means that the analyst desk will be bidding farewell, and you'll have Grapes and K-Man taking you through the rest of the night. So take care, guys, and enjoy the Group Ascend series coming up.